actual skilled live poker is back. Triton has once again brought together the best players in the world to play in some high-stakes tournaments in Cyprus, and in this video we're analyzing a hand from event number 1 between Ike Haxton, who has been absolutely crushing MTTs lately, and a relatively unknown player, Thin Chu.
Picked up a title back in Vietnam at breakfast, as I alluded to during the pregame show.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if he played in Vietnam, but you know, you can see that Dao Min Fu has brought some people with them.
Yeah,
they got the bug over there.
His camp.
3-bet Isaac Haxton, King 10 suited. Yeah, this is his very first event, Triton Chu. Triton newcomer.
It's his very first Ike Haxton 3-bet.
He's not faded. He got pocket 9s.
Gonna flat. And remember that newcomers, they cut both ways in terms of Haxton really knowing nothing about his opposition either. And here Chu on the ace-a7 board will check. Not the worst flop for him, but obviously there is some ace-x contained within Haxton's 3-betting range.
Yeah, this is the board that heavily favors the 3-better. So Tin Chu, with a hand like 9s, tends to kind of like check call once, check fold a lot of turns. We'll see how Isaac Haxton approaches this. King 10, fire once for now.
And really just want to see a muck.
Yes,
firing
of
here.
course. He's not saying like, call me with like some
this
float.
isn't value with King High.
You'll see the downsized bet on flops too on these paired boards and 3-bet pots. It's just it's quite polarizing. Your opponent has it or they don't.
So Chu's open with pocket 9s, Ike's 3-bet with King 10 suited, and Chu's call are all standard according to this custom pre-flop sim. And the same is also true for Chu's flop check and Ike's small bet. Although Ike may not have a significant nut advantage on this board, depending on how much flatting versus 3-betting he does pre-flop, Ike does likely have an overall range advantage with the stronger underpairs. And much of Chu's range has totally whiffed on this very dry board, so a small bet is ideal in this spot, including with King 10 of spades. And pocket 9s are going to be a clear defend here against the tiny bet, as are most pairs, though some of the lower pairs can be folded or raised as the EV for calling becomes diminished with lower rank.
The downsized bets, though, do come with kind of the inconvenience of not being able to clear the widest variety of hands. Sometimes you will get a float. And remember, he has no idea how Thin Chu plays.
100%, you're right about that, is that sometimes the bigger bet sizes on flops. Of course, you risk more, but you might get the answer you're looking for more.
Sure.
Pros and cons, you might play off of the small bet and multi-barrel a bit more, knowing that you're going to get floated or get weaker check calls. So, you know, it's a multi-street game, right? It's not just what is the best play on the flop. We need to know how to play the turn and river.
And some of the check calls from Thin Chu will certainly contain ace-x's of their own. It's not to say that just because he flatted, he doesn't have the bazooka here.
This is,
nevertheless, Haxton leaning on him with this 23K on the turn.
And, you know, I think that comes hand in hand. You know, the point that, you know, that small bet on the flop will invite more calls, and he knows that, so that's why he's multi-barreling. But Tin Chu is like, he's got pocket 9s, babe.
Sticky.
The turn is the 5 of diamonds and Ike barrels, this time sizing up to 3/4 pot. Continuing here may seem counterintuitive with King High and no draw, but we do see that the solver does bluff Ike's hand most of the time. So what's going on here? Well, first things first, Ike should have plenty of ace-x and better that will want to continue growing the pot on this relative blank, as the players are still pretty deep. This means that, in theory, Ike should be firing a good amount of bluffs as well. Naturally, diamond draws will be one of the primary barreling candidates, but given this is a 3-bet pot, he may not have sufficient flush draws for purposes of balance. So where can Ike pull some other bluffs from? Well, when it comes to bluffing, after incremental equity, we look to card removal. And in this case, holding a king and a 10 of spades is good because it unblocks some of the backdoor floats that Chu should have continued with on the flop versus the tiny bet, such as King X and Queen X of hearts and clubs. It is much less likely that Chu would float with these same combos containing spades, as we can see by their weights. So Ike holding spades increases the probability Chu has a hand that will fold. But note that the solver prefers a small bet with King 10 of spades, which allows the button to continue betting with his stronger underpairs that he has an advantage in, whereas it uses the larger sizing with King 10 of diamonds. But Chu doesn't have air, and we see that all underpairs in this spot are essentially equal bluff catchers that could go either way as a call or fold. This is because when Ike bet on the larger side, it polarized his range to consist primarily of trips and bluffs. Ike's underpairs should not have been as incentivized to grow the pot like this against Chu's range that should still have plenty of ace-x and better. So as we can see, all hands in this bucket have essentially equal equity, and they are calling and folding in almost equal proportions, with an EV regret of near zero for both options.
That's not one of them, as the board double pairs in this 76,500 chip pot in the early going here.
Yeah, one would imagine this hand is usually done here when Isaac Haxton bets flop and turn, especially when it pairs the 5. Well, ace-x is never folding, of course, but he's looking down at more chips. He's gonna fire away. It's a hard bet. You don't really see people put in triple barrels on ace, ace, 5, 5, 3 bet pot too much.
If Tin Chu had an ace, would he not comfortably lead into this river, given that the board is double paired? And now that he has check, might Haxton be thinking this is a pocket pair more than it is aces?
Yeah, some players will lead an ace here thinking, well, you're not going to bluff this board. I might as well just bet in case you've got like some kings, queens, jacks that bet the turn. I do like it if an ace-x would check, though, on a river to protect their check calling range. But wow, Haxton has somehow found a triple barrel. These guys are going hard right now, level 1.
They sure are.
This is an impossible call of 2 9s, isn't it?
I mean, the pot is laying him a little over 3.5 to 1. It's not impossible.
I know it's not impossible. Man, this would be sick.
It feels like you're on the wrong side of a dairy farm here and you're getting milked. No question about it.
Yeah, the sizing looks very milky. No.
Oh, my.
Okay, that's
Is
time
this a
card.
time extension? Okay. Do you think he's removing 10s through
Yes.
queens from Haxton's range?
100%. He should not expect 10s, jacks, queens, and kings to be value bet in the third barrel. Yeah, we'll just say it's just so. He just made the call, Ollie. That is.
We've
Tim
got a
came to
statement.
play.
We've got a statement on our hands, and look at Haxton's expression there.
So on this double pairing river, which doesn't change a whole lot since both players should not have much 5x, Ike basically has two options. One, he can give up and check back, or two, he could make a moderate bet to give Chu's pairs a difficult decision. Option 2 seems somewhat reasonable given that King X likely has very low showdown value, with this being a 3-bet pot and Chu calling bets on the flop and turn. However, the solver prefers option 1 because Ike, in theory, should have some better bluffing candidates, namely Queen X, Jack X, and 10x, that could have played the same way, but can't really beat any busted flush draws, whereas King X can. So to simplify his strategy, Ike could decide to simply bluff all hands lower than King X, and then check back all King X, as we see that the EV regret for this strategy would be very low. That all being said, there may be some exploitative considerations here with an MTT wizard applying pressure against a relatively unknown newbie in his first Triton tournament. And from Chu's perspective, very similar to the turn, calling versus folding pocket pairs is essentially a pure toss-up, as these hands beat all of Ike's bluffs, but lose to all of his value. Typically, we want to differentiate our bluff catchers based on card removal, but in this case, blockers aren't hugely relevant because the button is pulling bluffs from a variety of combos King X to 8x, and it has these same cards in the value region as well. Card removal really only comes into play for 7x of diamonds, where despite being lowest in rank, these combos actually call with the highest frequency, because a button shouldn't have any 7x in its bluffing range, as these combos have showdown value.